Virgin. Beauty. Bitch. Podcast. Inspiring women to overcome social stereotypes and share unique life experiences without fear of being defiantly different. Your hosts, Christopher and Heather. Let's talk, shall we?
Bitches are dangerous women. So too are women with money and wealth. So can you imagine becoming both? How to handle it all is a conversation we've reserved for one of our favorite people, the Money Witch. Welcome back, Jessie Karnatz, to Virgin Beauty Bitch.
Thank you for inviting me to return.
We love having conversations with you. Now, Jessie, we've all heard this term, rich bitch. Often it's used disparagingly to shame women, but the bitch we talk about isn't the stereotype the heartless tyrant society has conditioned us to dismiss as anti-feminine. No, she's a woman who's come through the crisis of betrayal, identity, trust, change, and healing, B-I-T-C-H. And wealth is an outcome under her control. But Jessie, as a financial educator and coach, is bitch an identity or a reputation that in a patriarch plays a negative role on women's psyche when it comes to the pursuit of financial riches?
I think in a lot of traditional workplaces, and certainly in the sphere of negotiation, is what comes to mind. Like self-advocacy is often framed or weaponized as bitchy. You're being pushy. You are, just like, it's almost related to like nagging or something. And then people don't take it as a serious self-advocacy. And so I think a lot of women in negotiation, in workplace, certainly in larger spheres of venture capital and those kinds of things often get denied or have an internalized experience of not like moving to the edge of their sovereignty because, of the psychological impact of that perception.
When women come to you, are they aware of that? The psychological, what's in the back of their mind that's keeping them from really going for it?
Certainly a couple layers, yes. I think that I work with a lot of people who are themselves healers. Like I say, I work with healers, hustlers, and creatives. So these are people who have already done a fair amount of identity work, of exploration, have experienced, maybe a crisis in their life that put them on some sort of healing track. They're people who have done a lot of this work and certainly know that they have issues and are extremely aware, I think, often of the role that patriarchy, white supremacist, racialized capitalism is playing in the way that they feel about money or the experience that they're having or the access that they're being given. And then the work that I do is to take people a few more layers deep to just connect a few more dots of what the true psychological impact is. And my real goal is for people to be standing on the edge of their sovereignty, working out to the edge of their sovereignty. There's always going to be societal impacts that limits people's sovereignty. But a lot of us aren't standing on the edge because, number one, it can be painful, and more vulnerable to be out there pushing as far as you can on the edge and hitting up against that societal impact. And two, just because, the way that a lot of these systems work is the internalized aspect, the shame and all these things that keep us doing oppressive work, for others to ourselves. We are, it's like the external fascists have to work less hard if they've kind of taught us to impact it on ourselves already.
Yeah, I am so glad with some of the things that you highlighted there because this season for us, this 2026 is Year of the Bitch. And that season is all about reclaiming parts of ourselves as women that we were taught to suppress. And so when I think about the bitch and how she connects with money, and I know that from our previous conversation, something that you work with your clients on is your relationship with money when you think about desire, when you think about worthiness, when you think about shame, like what you just said, survival, power, control, even pleasure. And I guess I'm curious because women are taught a lot of contradictory things about money pretty much from the get go. So when you hear us talking about the bitch and almost an archetype that goes alongside that, what do you think she brings to the table in the conversation of women and their relationship with money?
I mean, a savviness, really. And that thought about, when I was thinking about the words that you all use to describe bitch, and I'm like, the number one is betrayal, right? Like somebody's had an experience of betrayal and worked through it. And, it also brings this other B word that I think is often insinuated when we're talking about women, which is like bitterness. What is the bitterness that can come into your spirit through this experience of betrayal, which, might be a direct relationship experience. It's also often systemic. I know there's a lot of people in my life who, feel betrayed on an existential level by essentially the body that they're born into and what that means that they have to use their energy on, and how they see that as detracting from, their real purpose or their real gifts and what they could be offering. So I think like betrayal and even bitterness, like ideally we as women find a way to work through that and transform that, or, move past it, mostly because causes ourselves a lot of suffering first, right? But I think it brings a level of intelligence and, this like savviness that, if you have a more easeful experience, you might not have that knowledge or that wisdom. It's a type of wisdom really to offer to the conversation.
Yes, it's number one. It's the first hurdle of awareness before you can move forward. But speaking on betrayal, and this might be taboo to some, but how much wealth in the world is actually built off the bodies of women? The beauty industry, pornography, and of course the oldest profession in the world, prostitution, all performed primarily by women for the wealth benefit primarily of men. Is that not the oldest betrayal of womankind?
I think, when I think about how much money is being made off of women, I think actually more of like domestic labor, because, and this is not just like women, right? But we think about feminized bodies or like devalued bodies, which shifts, like whose body is valuable and not valuable shifts with a cultural lens throughout time, right? But, the capitalist system is designed to have women working for free at home, doing all of the childcare, all of the elder care, all of the cooking, all of the cleaning, like this is just an unbelievable amount of labor that is supposed to be quote unquote like standing behind every man, right? Is like this amount of women's labor to support a family. And that does cultivate the capacity for men to make more money, right? Like that's I think just the research. Even it doesn't feel like an opinion. It just feels like that's what is happening.
Yeah, I'm glad with what you both highlighted there, because when you think of prostitution and sex work as one of the oldest industries to humankind, and also the unpaid labor that women have performed since money was exchanged for certain types of work and not others. I really think we're in such an interesting place in our society where we know that the sex industry is the biggest, if second biggest, or if not the biggest industry in the world, like above arms and wars, etc. And we don't really, I think, even know just how vast it is, because it seems like every new CNN has a different story of more and more of this kind of world that we live in, and then maybe we don't want to look at. But I'm interested with women kind of taking, if women's bodies are a commodity in this world, I find it fascinating that more and more women are going to things like OnlyFans to make their own money rather than be peddled by a different person who takes a cut of their money. And I think that this is a wider conversation, but I'm glad that you mentioned it, Christopher, because it just seems like it's been an industry for so long, and this world of online sex work is just completely going to whole new different heights.
I'd say a few things. Like, as someone who has worked in the sex industry, there's a few different points I want to make. Number one is that there's a very important distinction between sex work and human trafficking. So it's like what you're saying around like, oh, what is a large-scale economic interest? You know, what is a massive industry? What are we hearing about on the news? That is human trafficking, right? Like, that is abuse. That is not sex work. So anyway, so that's an extremely important distinction to make for like many reasons. And I don't know, like we're saying, right? Like, it's an entirely, like, obviously human trafficking is an entirely illegal industry. And there's very little information about what kind of numbers, you know, we're looking at and where that money is going. The kind of journalism that does the tracking of like, oh, who's making money off of arms, or who's, you know, what corporations are connected to X, Y, and Z. Like, we're not able to do that in the same way. Sex work, I think of as it has often, and the landscape of sex work is often a very disorganized endeavor. It's often a very anarchic endeavor where, you know, and that's part of the benefit of it, right? It's something that individuals can engage in order to make money on their own terms under a myriad of different circumstances. That's everything from things that are like, you know, more above board, like working at a brothel in Nevada, to people who are, you know, in street-based sex work where they're like doing their own thing. And there's like a broad spectrum of what kind of relationship sex workers have to, I'm completely running my own show 100% and making all of the money, to being engaged in some sort of organized way, whether that, you know, where somebody else gets a cut, which is like, I've spent 8 years working in strip clubs. Like, I could, you know, speak for many hours about the way that people take cuts of money or those kinds of things. Honestly, as a small business, you know, internet small business person outside of sex work, I don't experience a different dynamic of like I just paid my city business license, and I'm like, someone's like, what is it? I'm like, what is a business license? Except the city is just like, I'd like a couple $100. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, they're not like doing anything, you know? And I'm like, okay, the city wants a little something. The state wants a little something. The county wants a little something. The federal government wants a little something, you know, the credit card processor wants a little something. Zoom wants a little something, you know, Google, Apple, everybody wants a little cut, right? Of everything all the time. So I think there's a lot of ways that it's like, that is true in lots of industries, and not necessarily viewed as problematic in the same way. And the majority of people, like, I would just say anecdotally, as someone who spent a long time in the sex industry, like 8 to 10 years is a chunk of time, like probably in the upper echelon of time that people spend in there, and who has a lot of sex workers in my life. I think the majority of people that I know who work in the sex industry work in ways that are self-initiated and self-organized. So I don't think, so anyway, those are a few things that I definitely want to lay out. But, you know, the internet, like going to like OnlyFans or something like that, the internet has vastly changed the way that everybody, you know, it's like, it's changed every industry, right? And OnlyFans is something that is sort of an extension from pieces of the industry, like phone sex is old. It's as old as, I don't say it's as old as phones, but you know what I mean? It's been going on for a while. That's video, obviously, and all of these things like were a part of the sex industry, and the porn industry, like ongoingly. They've just been like utilized in different ways. And, OnlyFans is taking their cut. Everybody's taking their cut across industries. Everybody's taking their cut. But it's like, where's the cut going? And that's where I think we get into this like gender divide, right? Like, what is the percentage of people who are paying a cut? And what's the percentage of those people that are women, like across a lot of industries, like worldwide? And then what's the percentage of people who are taking a cut that are men or women? Do you know what I mean? And I would say that divide is, I don't have any statistics, but I would feel absolutely confident saying that, historically the people taking a cut are going to be, in this moment of human history, male, white, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think that was my whole point of bringing up that can of worms.
But I appreciate the very important distinction, and I think that's very important to hear and to say on our show. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You had mentioned capitalism a few times, right? Which, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is a male construct, right? And younger generations of women may not be aware, and I'm sure you encounter this, but in the United States, before 1974, a woman could not open a bank account, apply for a credit card, or get a home loan without the permission of her husband. That's 1974. So, Jesse, how does that late entry into the money game impact women's financial literacy today?
I mean, I still have clients who were raised in very patriarchal settings where their father, didn't really want them to know anything about money because it's all people's unhealed lineage stuff, right? They want to feel important. They want to feel powerful, and providing for people, their children, their daughters, makes them feel that way. And in the best of all worlds, we would have a situation where parents want to do all those things, provide and protect and also inform, but it doesn't always play out like that. And I would say I end up with even more clients who got themselves in situations where they were in a marriage and the assets were all being managed, a heterosexual marriage where the assets were all being managed by the male partner, and ended up not being on the lease of the house or the title, right? Like not knowing where all the money was, not knowing how much money, a husband accumulating a lot of debt and, them being responsible for it later on in the divorce. So I think that even in 2026, right? I think of this as spanning pretty much my lifetime, 74. I was born in 81. So it's I'm 74 I could have been born. I was very close to being born when that was still true, right? And then I'm okay, my whole lifetime, even now, this many years later, people are living in the trickle down of that attitude and that impact. So, literacy is something I think the practitioners of capitalism invest a lot in trying to make it seem like they know a lot of very complex things that no one else could understand. And that's why they have all the money, is because, they're smarter than you, they've worked harder than you, etc. And we fall into it because sometimes we feel a little dumb, or we're intimidated, right? That intimidation factor, I think goes a long way in people internalizing a shame around their level of literacy. One of the most important things around financial literacy to me, there's a statement that I say, and it says, bad with money is not a personality trait. It's a statement of literacy. So literacy is not inborn. Nobody comes out of the womb knowing how to speak or read a language, right? Everything about your literacy, every literacy that you have, right? Every person has multiple literacies, and every person has an edge to every literacy that they have, right? Like I have an edge to my commands of the English language. I have an edge that's way smaller to my command of the Spanish language. I have an edge to my commands of financial language. All I have to do to push that edge is engage in education. But it is overwhelming and intimidating to even approach the education or the educational process, or doesn't feel accessible when we're so full of shame from feeling like our literacy level is not adequate. So it stops us from learning more, and it really does impact our relationship to literacy.
I think you've, really hit the nail on the head in how some women avoid wanting to get more financially literate because of the shame of not understanding that language or not understanding their relationship to money based off of many things they may have heard growing up about money, like too much making it their god or not having enough. I think a lot of us carry a lot of historical, almost like cellular understanding of it that can be good or bad. But I do want to talk about the word money witch, because I think that, clearly it rhymes with our year, but deeper than that, witches historically were feared women. But really, the more that we look into that history, that very dark history, that it was women of intuition, women of power, women connected to healing, and women who ultimately existed outside of the system and the system's norms that were seen as a threat to those norms. And to me, when I think of our bitch in her year, there's so many parallels in this kind of dismantling of the typical sense of the word and reimagining what a woman who is fully authentically herself and able to be radically honest in who she is and what she wants. I think that there's some really important pieces in that that piece of the bitch that we are drawing forward through this series. So for you, help our guests to know a little bit more about how you landed on money witch, and what does that mean, a witch, for you in today's world in financial literacy?
Yeah, a witch to me is someone who essentially is centering what they want, because witchcraft is largely about using your power in alliance with other powers. For example, the kinds of powers that witches call on, right? Like the power of different spirits or deities or ancestors or plants or animals or elements. Being in relationship, cultivating relationship with other powerful energies, and then using and cultivating a relationship with your own power, and then using that to get what you want, the outcome that you demand, essentially. So there's a real parallel, I think, with certainly the way that, the word bitch is used societally, which is like someone who is, a woman who is singularly focused on herself and very determined to not sacrifice, what she wants. And yeah, I see a real parallel there. So the money witch, like combining those two things, is about, using everything that you have on hand to create the results that you want to see in the world. So I have a framework called the 3 angles of healing. So I think if you want to enact healing in an area of your life, and I define healing as movement of energy. If you want to move energy in your life, especially in an intentional way, in a specific direction, then I think you're going to see the best results if you work it from all 3 of these angles. So one of them is the practical or logistical angle. That's the education, the doing the investment, doing the budgeting, asking for the raise, putting your feet on the ground to do the things. There's the spiritual emotional element, which is basically financial shadow work, which is a lot of what I facilitate for people. Like we discussed that earlier in the session, digging a few layers deeper of like what is actually going on here for you in the under layers that is impacting the way that you're experiencing your finances, money, and the financial world. And then there's the magical and energetic angle. And I think that people really need to remember that we are all energetic beings, and again, this is at this point considered science, right? We have an energetic field. Our energetic field impacts the world around us, and we are impacted by the energetic field of the things around us and the people around us. So if I remember, even if I'm feeling, oh, my boss won't give me the raise, I can't really shake this money shame, remember that there's this other point of access, which is like you have an energetic power. When you say a prayer or you light a candle or you make this tea or set this intention or do your intention settings at the new moon or you do whatever other kinds of like energetic and ritual work around your money, you're also impacting the tapestry of existence. And it's really important to not forget that is available to us. The energetic sphere has been, and the magical sphere has been highly utilized by marginalized people throughout time because it is always available. No external change in circumstance can impact what you have access to in your own internal power or your own inner experience. And connecting from your own inner experience straight to spirit, straight to the energetic world is a place of unlimited power, essentially.
I hear that you are far more efficient than we are. You have 3 steps, we have 5.
Oh, yes.
However, the parallels are eerily similar of what you speak. Even stretched out into 5 words, it's still the same steps to get to where you are, to that healing, to that energy, to that movement of that energy. That's remarkable to me.
I love that. We're brought together for a reason.
I really like what you said in your definition of healing, because that is the H, of course, in our acronym. And you said healing is moving energy in a direction, hopefully with intention. And that just really hit me because it feels so fluid. It feels that you can move things either through your body or with your intentions, with your planning, with your rituals about where you want that to head next. So yeah, thank you for that. That's really a unique definition. I've not heard it said like that before.
I'm glad to bring it and that it landed well.
And it's brave to bring all of that universal force into what we put as a taboo, which is money. That's a shameful part of it. So the work you do in unlocking and giving women permission to unlock that force within themselves towards that goal is remarkable, and we are absolutely overjoyed that you do that.
Thank you. It's really, truly my honor.
I've got one final question for you, just as a kind of fun final round.
Yeah.
In your work, what do you think is one belief about money that women need to let go, burn out of their mind, release?
I mean, I'm going to just go with a classic trope, which is that someone's coming to save you. Yeah, because they're probably not. They're probably not. And if they are, then when they arrive, if you already feel stable and grounded and in touch with your own relationship to resources, then you'll be able to join with them to really build something different. Yeah.
I'm going to ask Heather to ask that same question that she just asked, but substitute money for bitch.
Okay. Wait, we have to say, will you say it again?
Sure. I'm hoping I'm capturing what Christopher's thinking here, but if there was one thing about the word bitch that women can let go of, shed, burn, what do you think that would be?
Just letting it stab so deeply, or tiptoeing around, like being afraid of being called that. Because if it's being used in a weaponized way, then, I mean, if somebody wants to throw a dagger at you, they're gonna find one. You know what I mean? Whether it's that or something else. So, trying to play small or tiptoe around so that you're avoiding a certain label doesn't make the other party have your best interest at heart. You know what I mean? It doesn't change the circumstances of the situation. It's just, I guess increasing the tolerance for the discomfort of potentially being viewed that way, right? So much of our healing journey is often around increasing our tolerance for discomfort. So maybe like increasing our tolerance for the discomfort of being viewed through the lens of that word.
It's ironic to me that women historically have developed such tolerance for so much, yet that one small 5-letter word still gets straight to their soul.
Yeah.
It's power over.
It is power over.
Right? And our goal is to take that power to yourself. Be the bitch that you define, how you define it, and let the world respond the way it responds. But you own that. That's our goal with these conversations. We absolutely are always overjoyed to have your smile on our show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking the time to indulge us again. I know we call on you over and over and you always respond because these conversations are always magic and we love them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure. So thank you for the insights that you continue to bring. And for our listeners who maybe haven't heard you before, please tell them where they can find you.
Well, everything lives in the hub of moneywitch.com. The ways you can find me in social media is on Instagram or on YouTube. So if you want some more listening, you can find a lot more of me speaking in those places. But at moneywitch.com, you can find a way to apply to my one-on-one work and also get on the wait list for my big endeavor that I spend most of my time on, which is called Money Coven, which is I call it a cult, but it's a membership. Membership is just so boring, but where, we're working through this. There's like a, group of people working through these financial shadows regularly and just having all kinds of revelation, all kinds of inner healing, all kinds of external wins, and really like healing and deepening their relationship with money. So there's a place to get on the wait list. The doors will reopen again in the fall there. So yeah. Or I have a book. You could go find my book out in the world as well.
And the name is?
It's called Money Magic. It has a very long subtitle. It's like healing rituals and empowering something to heal your finances. I didn't choose it. It was the publisher, but it's really gorgeous. It's everything about the book I put my hands on deeply except the title. So yeah, it's really a beautiful book. It's a fun book. You know, a big part of my ethos is to make money accessible to people, and I know that part of that is aesthetic, you know, and tone and just taking the pressure off. So if that sounds appealing, then I think that's a great place to start. It's a fun place to start.
You know, an amazing personality, and just a joy to have a conversation with. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you have been listening to
The Virgin
The Beauty
and the Bitch in her year, BITCH.
2026. Find us, like us, share us. Bring your own self back here, okay? Come on back.